Hello, Positive Philter listeners. This is Philip Wilkerson. I just wanted to give you a heads up that this is an extended episode and is a little bit longer than my normal episodes. Also, there may be some adult language used, but this is a great episode with Professor Todd Kashdan. So please check it out and enjoy the show. Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. Actually, this is a very special episode. I feel like this is like 4 years in the making, 3 years in the making. I'm joined by the good doctor, Dr. Kashdan, Todd Kashdan. I hope I'm saying that real strong because I'm trying to make sure I pronounce his name correctly. This is a great professor a world-renowned professor, writing books, doing all kinds of great things. And we just said, hey, I want to get you on a podcast. And it's been like, he's got people. I had to get through his people, all those different things. But we've chopped it up. We share a lot of the same ideas. I think we're both weird thinkers. And so we're going to be on the podcast. But, you know, his latest book was Art of Insubordination. I read that. And actually, we're going to talk about that too. But that's it, right? Todd, did I miss anything?
I'm just so glad that my digital assistant in India finally allowed you to have a conversation with me.
It's kind of funny, but not funny because I actually get scammed a lot from people from Bangladesh or others say they're going to be my podcast assistant. You know, it's a real thing, right?
I get spammed by so many people from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan who say they want to be my PhD student, but somehow they need money from me to be my PhD student.
Mine is more like, if you give me money, they'll give me higher ratings on iTunes. And I did it once.
Stop.
I got the screenshot. I thought it worked, but then I felt weird because I felt like I got scammed.
You're on like a blacklist for every scammer in every country around the world.
Think about it. I'm pretty sure in their network, it's like, we got one, and his name is Philip Wilkerson, and they all got my email now.
This is the big fish.
Golly. Well, that was a really good intro. Did I miss anything about your books or anything you want to share with the listeners?
That's pretty much 48 years of my life right there in 3 sentences.
So books, writing in college, and being a doctor. All right. Well, we're just going to jump right into it. You know, I think one of the things, this has been a long time, and I don't read a lot. I don't know how that's going to lead into a question. I read a lot, but I am more of an audio learner, and so I actually listen to your book. And actually it was nice because it was written in your voice. So it felt like I was having a conversation with you. It sounded kind of creepy, but I did it on a road trip and I thought it was wonderful. And the reason why I like your book, and I'm not just saying that because you're here, is because me, as someone that feels like they're often a different person, but wants to be a leader, I felt like this book was for them. It's for like the different types of leaders, meaning the ones that may be ostracized at first but still lead, or those that want to challenge something or challenge a system, or like, that don't make no sense. I don't like the way that this is always done. Why is it always done this way? And then people challenge it. And then, so your book really spoke to me, honestly, because I think I'm that type of person. I'm not like a rebellious person, but I'm also like a person I challenge a lot because I don't think it makes sense. So what made you write about insubordination? Like I was about to say, not subordination, insubordination in the first place.
Well, first of all, thank you. That means a great deal. It's interesting because I think in some ways, I mean, I should probably give listeners like a visual for what's happening right now. I am in your she shed behind your house.
Why is there a she shed?
We just name everything we don't know what gender it should be. We just give it a woman to give it more power.
Like a car.
Some agency. Yeah, give it some agency. Or a boat.
Okay, well, this house is the House of Alpha. I named it.
Yeah, with no bathroom in the she shed.
Yeah.
It's about a half a mile to go into your house.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So
and it's about 33 degrees.
Now you're next to the heater.
It's still about 33 degrees together.
Oh, yes.
I mean, so one thing is, in some ways, the word insubordination, you think about rebels, mavericks, renegades, dissidents, and in some ways, I think you captured nicely what I wanted to be, which is that you sometimes everybody has a personality matrix of, a few dozen dimensions. And so you have this really idiosyncratic way of living, and your way of rebelliousness doesn't look like the way that the media portrays it, because you are so kind, so giving, so generous, and you've got, multiple kids, and you're taking care of your mother-in-law. And for the gender role script for a man, still even in 2023, as we're talking right now, is the idea of spending inordinate amounts of time and effort on a daily basis for other people breaks the gender role script. And so in some ways, that is what I call like a niche carver, which is, it's a way of diverging from what society tells you can, should be. And you learn this over your course of your life history. And it's in a principled way, in terms of this stands out from other guys, and in a good way, in providing a role model for other people. And I think that's one of the lessons, is the liberation of meeting dissenters, is that it's like, oh, you can do that. Oh, and it pays dividends. Oh, and look how people respond to Phil. And like, oh, look how like attractive he is in a room full of people, how people like flock and want to be around him. That happens there. And that sets off an emotional cascade of, here's another way of being.
I like that. I was just more so thinking like, oh, well, that was really flattering. That's probably the nicest way to say you're weird that I've ever heard. But I was thinking like, and I loved your thoughts of like challenging, but not always challenging comes out of conflict. So what I heard from your thoughts was like, okay, like for instance, and I used to get this all the time. I got the Willie Nelson right there, right? The Willie Nelson record. And I used to always hate when someone would say, well, that's white people music. And I used to always get that a lot, right? And I was thinking all this nonconformity. I was like, but now that I read your book, I used to like really frame it. And now I wish I could go back in the time machine and be like, but why is Willie Nelson owned by whiteness? Why is music owned by whiteness, or genres owned by whiteness? And now that I'm like more well-spoken, I would have said it like that rather than be like, shut up, or like get really upset about it. Like take that internalized, like, dang, the things I like is not normal for a black boy, right? Or anything. And so I really gravitated to that too, was that like sometimes the challenging of systems is within a group, like challenging within a group, like amongst black people, there's challenge. And I don't know, I gravitated to it because I was like, I never thought that was a act of subordination, because I still listen to the music anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I'll tell you one of my maxims from cultural psychology. And I think I like where you're going, because I think when we think about cultures, we often think about Eastern Asian countries versus Western society, collectivist cultures versus individualistic cultures. But really, there's more heterogeneity within a group than between groups. And I think people forget that. And so the idea that if you grew up in the 80s, you're going to listen to Public Enemy, and you're going to be listening to, you're not going to be listening to Anthrax, and you're not going to be listening to Metallica, and you're not going to listen to Megadeth, because you picture some suburban white kid with with a leather jacket, or like an Iron Maiden back patch on his jean jacket. That happens there. And those archetypes are a nice starting point, but there's something beautiful about starting from what are your cherished interests, what energizes you, what depletes you, and then at any age of just honoring that. Of like, if you hate opera, and if you despise poetry, and you despise the Super Bowl, the idea is on Super Bowl Sunday, you're doing something else, and you don't feel guilty about it, you don't feel ashamed about it, and you comfortably walk through the world with that and say, listen, this is like Night of the Comet. There's no human beings out in any supermarket or crowded place ever. I'm going to Costco. And I'm gonna go to Barnes & Noble. I'm gonna go sift through books. There's gonna be nobody there. I love like the quiet that happens there, the solitude that happens there. And then whatever music hits you, whatever comedian makes you laugh, irrespective of what society says you should listen to or you should like, because of however you look or whatever affiliation that you're part of in terms of what groups you aspire to be or that you're part of, you listen to. These are the things that I'm initially attracted to. These are the things that make me curious, and I'm going to let that lens prosper, and I'm going to weight that and give less credence to what shoulds aughts are being pushed on me from the outside.
Yeah, so I'm really reframing. I'm thinking that too. It's like you're talking about like, and I know you talked about really insubordinate, like challenging systems, and we can go there. But I wanted to focus on like the micro ones, like because you were talking about like, you know, Galileo and people like Darwin. I remember that specifically, right? Like he challenged the whole thought about evolution, which is a whole system challenge. But I like what you're saying about the homogeneity of groups, I want to go back and bring that back to like the high school person that wants to always fit in, the high school kid or conformity, where there's this thing of like trying to be and understand that individual being, but also just like the sense of belonging, which I think is an innate thing that we all want. And there's constant tug at that, right? Where I believe like I want to belong. You know, you see me, I create groups, I create senses of belonging. But at the same time, as an individual, I should be fulfilled individually in myself. The pursuit of happiness is an individual pursuit. You know, like, so how do you discuss that tug? I think it's like a big tug that we always go through. Like, I want to be myself. I'm okay with myself. I love myself. But at the same time, I want to be accepted. I want to be accepted by groups, not just by groups.
Yeah, not just self-appreciation, self-compassion, self-affirmation. There's also like this groups. I'm actually going to make it even more sophisticated than that. I'm going to blow this up even further.
Okay.
So Marilyn Brewer, we were talking about Ohio State University before we went on the air. So it was Ohio State University professor who came up with this theory. It's called optimal distinctiveness theory. And it's basically whatever group that you're a part of. So it could be a fraternity, sorority, it's the place you work, like it's your pickleball group that you're part of. It's the people you hang out with on a Friday night for playing pool or snookers, if that's even a sport anymore. In these groups that you're part of, you have two psychological needs. So you have, as you were saying, the need to fit in or the need to belong. Mm-hmm. And then there's the need for uniqueness. And these are in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
Because within a group, you want to feel as if you are cared for, understood, valued. So that's the belonging part. You want to feel as if you want to feel safe and secure to be you, and that you specifically are desired. But there's another part of you that wants to not be an interchangeable part with every other person in the group and say, I'm here as Phil or Todd, and then I have these sharp edges. Because they're not like anyone else. Because no one's ever had the conversations I had. No one's read the books I've had. Mm-hmm. No one's listened to the music I've had. No one's had the positive and negative life experiences I've had. No one's had the parents I've had. And over that life history, my cultural DNA in terms of what I offer, in terms of thinking about things, my perspective on issues, is unlike, in some ways, anyone that'll ever walk the earth again. And you want that to be appreciated, not to fit in, but I want Phil there because no one else can take his place. And when he's sick and he's not here, there's an empty place at the table, kind of like Elijah in, the Judaism's history.
Yeah.
Like you've got this place of like, no one takes Phil's place when he's not there. And that need is often forgotten or subservient to, you feel if I make someone feel as if they're cared for and understood and they fit in, you feel as if that's sufficient. And I'm saying, based on this work of Marilyn Brewer, you also have to acknowledge they have this unique set of strengths and these unique perspectives. And part of the beauty of bringing someone into a group and valuing them as a member is saying, I want access to your perspective, which means you have to be curious enough to kind of explore. Phil, what are your thoughts on this, as opposed to assuming they're like everyone else in the group?
And it's kind of like the diversity, man. Was it strength and diversity right there, right? So you want differences of thought or differences in this. So why, when you understand, like, let's even get bigger, why when you understand that diversity of thought or differences is probably a good thing, that you want groupness, but you also want individual perspectives to that group to do that, why does like diversity such challenge for certain people? Like, why do we always why is there a big system tug to say conformity is this way when we understand there's a lot of strengths to diversity? Why do you see that like play out historically over and over again, where we know, you just brought up, and I've seen it, physically seen it with my own eyes, that even in a quote unquote homogenous group, that people's differences contribute. So there's diversity in that, but then we still like don't want diversity.
Yeah, we have like this allergic reaction. Like even more is that superficially we say we like diversity, but when push comes to shove and someone offers an idea that's unlike everyone else, like, let's just ignore Phil. Let's stick with the direction we were going. They're happy there. This is what you typically see in groups. Or there's someone that offers a new idea, they get socially persecuted, and you're kind of like, you know what? We're gonna go a different way. That happens there. So you bring a diverse member in the group. That's relatively easy, but still people are doing, a half-assed job at it. But where people really are failing, and I'm talking groups that even support diversity initiatives, is extracting the unique information and perspectives of the diverse members that you've brought in. This is that people aren't even coming close to tap this, which means that when you have convened together as a bunch of individuals, you give space and you give an out to wait for that diverse perspective to come into the room. You embrace it and seek it out. And that person with the diverse voice may not want to say anything, may not want to emit a sound, but at least you're giving them the opening to say, listen, even after today, before we make a decision, let me know if you have further thoughts to add outside of this conversation we're having right now. So you are waiting and applying a sufficient amount of space and a pause to make sure that we are not going to make a decision because we don't believe a high-quality decision can be made until another perspective is brought in the room. And that's something I don't see too often in organizations.
Now, do you think you believe, I don't know, I can't, this is such a long time ago. I listened to this book. I told you, I listened to this book. This book came out, last summer? So my life's a blur, but I do remember specifically, like, you're rooting some of the things of challenging opposite thinking is coming from a root of fear, right? And did you bring that up in the book?
There's a whole bunch of mechanisms. So you asked about, like, why do we pursue conformity?
Because we pursue conformity, right? And then we, like, let's say we have a diverse thought, but usually what diverse thoughts do sometimes brings up the flaws in that system. So let's say you got an outside perspective, a new diverse thought. They bring up hey, this is an idea. Usually that idea challenges because you've done something the same way over and over again. It challenges the pre-existing power structure, and that's why it's shot down. When in actuality, it's a good idea. And I think you also spoke about too. Sometimes it's the messenger too, right? Like it could be like the person that's the different person that brings the idea says it and like, no, we don't like that idea. And literally the person that's like right next to them that looks like everybody says it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the greatest idea. But it's because it points out a flaw, and people don't like point out flaws. So let me give an example, right? And I want you to kind of explore the scenario because we're just throwing out scenarios like where, every day everyone has to get $5 for lunch or something. And I'm like, I come in there from another situation. I'm like, but what's this money coming to? And I start challenging, asking questions that no one's ever asked about where this $5 for lunch is going. And they're like, this person is trying to just jack up all the things, which are good questions. So like, why do people like actually why do people don't like being challenged when they're good ideas, right? Or they're good questions?
So Justin Thibault, he's a philosopher and a psychologist.
Man, you're pulling all this, man. You got all these in your head?
So he has a framework of rethinking of why do people like to be around people that think like them, act like them, and kind of enjoy a very conformist, stable system. And the reason is exactly with your example, which is it is so efficient. So the term that psychologists like to use is locomotion. It's very quickly for a bunch of firefighters to hear the alarm that there's a fire. They all slide down the poles, jump into the fire engine, fire truck, and then they're out of there within seconds. Like efficient locomotion. They get from point A to point B very quickly. When the dissenter comes into the room and asks the question of, I'm just curious, where is the money going to? Because it sounds like it's not all going to the food. And then I'm curious if there's a better way or a different way of doing this that happens there. You've just slowed down the fire truck to getting to the fire that happens there. And the problem is when the group focuses on speed to thought and speed to making decisions and thinking about efficiency, what they forget is the really important thing is high quality decision making. And where dissent comes in, it mentally liberates the group where the greatest predictor that creative decisions will be made is that the creative ideas come to the forefront in the first place. And the greatest predictor that a creative idea will come to the forefront is the number of ideas that emerge in the thinking process. And the number of ideas in the thinking process is increased by the number of diverse perspectives in the room.
So, okay, let's say, and I like this scenario, and I'm going to go on there. How do you read the room, and before you ask these questions, you know it's a good time to ask questions? So one of the things that is my flaw. You gave me lots of compliments. Sometimes I just say what I'm thinking out loud, and they're like, I probably should have like read the room before I asked that question. It's a good question, it's a good challenge, but maybe I should have like read the room and like not asked that to the boss to their face, or maybe understood the context first and slowed down and read the room before I start challenging or disrupting, right? You just can't come and disrupt. So what would you say to someone that's being introduced to the group, actually sees flaws in a system, but it's probably not the best time to say it right away? What would you say to someone?
Two things. So 2 evidence-based tips right off the bat. One is form alliances outside of the group before the group happens. And those alliances should be with the people you think will be most likely to be upset or disturbed by the ideas that you bring, and they're going to be opponents to your ideas. And when you meet with them individually, 1, they don't have to worry about saving face. 2, they can still offer opposition to you in the group form, but now face to face that's happening there is an automatic collaboration that's happening. Because you're going to ask these people, these opponents, one-on-one, to say, listen, I'm about to bring this up to the group because I had some concerns about the direction that we're heading. I know how smart you are. I know you're probably going to challenge these ideas because I like the way that you think. And I wanted to run them by you first to see what criticisms you might have about my criticism. Now, as soon as they start to invite their criticisms to you one-on-one, there is a little bit of a psychological jiu-jitsu that's happening where they realize of like, you're now working in partnership. You've actually thrown them a bone by acknowledging that they have strengths, and that's why you went to them. There's a little bit of subservience in terms of you've gone to them and kind of asked for their hand and kind of acceptance in this idea that's happening. And then when you introduce the idea to the group, you get to mention that person who was your potential adversary, who's now your collaborator. It's like, so when you, as opposed to revealing the idea right off the bat, now the next meeting that occurs is, listen, I talked to Jessica. Jessica brought some great ideas before I introduced this idea to the group. And I just want to make sure is that whatever's bad about what I'm going to say, that's on me. Whatever's good, it's because of Jessica. You've now basically taken Jessica, made sure her defenses come down, and she's going to be curious and have a little bit of an appreciation of that you've shown admiration to her in the group as a collaborator, and you've reduced the amount of opponents that you have for that idea.
I'm just thinking, how come that doesn't happen very often, though? Like, I'd be saying that, like, looking at politics. How come they don't do that all the time? Like I don't see them, like, saying that we collaborated like, they're just so polarized. Like, it seems like a great idea, you know, like, get to know and talk to people even different than you, and then have more normal civil conversations.
If you go before 1998 and you look at how many, the amount of congressional activity that crossed party lines, it was like a spider web of, you would see a large number of Democrats in Congress that would bring up new legislation or new ideas, and lots of Republicans would jump on board, and vice versa. That would happen. And now, about 2005, you can see there's almost no overlap between if an idea is brought by a blue, almost no red signs onto it. And in this case, unfortunately, it's the incentives have been altered, where it used to be that showing that you can cross party lines shows that you have political acumen, social effervescence, you have a broader social network, and you are an attractive person to get to know in Congress. And now it's,
you sold out.
Does your individual group support you? And part of getting support from your individual group is showing out-group hatred and out-group disdain to whatever ideas they bring, and not just support and favoritism for the ideas brought by the members of your tribe. And that tribalism, once that gets incentivized, it's very difficult to go back to the ways of the 1990s, 80s, 70s, and before.
Because, you know, like, my father-in-law, I talked to him a lot, and he was very, he started a progressive party at UVA, but he was like, man, we used to, like, chop it up and have lunch with each other and like, different political ideologies and just disagreeing on a few things, and it wasn't that serious. But now it's different, and so I don't know. I think because I love your strategy. I love your strategy about cross collaboration and communication. Actually, I'm gonna actually implement what you said too. It's like I think a lot of the things I'm learning too is about slowing down a little bit. I'm impulsive, definitely.
I'm in your personality camp.
So I'm impulsive, and also I know maybe slowing down and say, who do I need to talk to before time? Like and I worked on it. I think I've actually gotten better at like slowing down and say, okay, it's basically read the room. If, before I get in the room, who do I need to talk to before I go in the room? Which I love that idea, but like I don't feel like I feel like that's applicable in certain spaces, but it's just not working in certain spaces. So what spaces do you believe that doing that strategy of talking and collaborating is doing really well? Like I still see this, and which ones we kind of said it with politics. Which one is not doing very well with this different collaboration?
Well, I think we should think about our social circles at a more micro level. So let's put politics kind of over here in the corner over here. Yeah. In whatever organization listeners are working in, or it could be your community, like even just setting up like a party for high school graduation, junior high school graduation that's happening here. You are going to have people. You have egos involved, and you have people with different ideas that are involved and different incentives involved. Of people want, just like we talked about optimal distinctiveness theory. People want to feel like they belong. People want to feel that their strengths are being acknowledged, appreciated, and they are given extra weight in whatever decision is made. And so, knowing that those egos are involved there, this strategy is very effective. Yeah. In an organization, people just want their name to be acknowledged. They want their voice to be amplified. Yeah. And if the beauty of this strategy is you forge new connections that are not based on likability, but they're based on competence and credibility. Mm. And so if you're with your opponent having a one-on-one conversation over lunch, over drinks, and then you go to the next meeting and you mention their name, everyone's going to look like askew in terms of, wait, Jessica and Todd talking to each other? Like one-on-one that happens there? And what happens go back to the mental liberation of dissent is just the fact that Jessica and I, who were once opponents, I'm now mentioning our names together in the same sentence as a form of collaboration. I've just opened the doors, the portals for other people to think to themselves, if they could get along, like I should probably, that person that I've never spoken to who works in the library, who has access to all these like great, like archival books of the 1800s that I've just been avoiding because she's a Trump supporter or she's a Barack Obama supporter. Is maybe I can like talk to them because they have something that I want. They have something I need. They have something that would make my work better. That happens there. That's the liberation of one single person going against the grain, idea-wise, also social network-wise, in terms of talking to someone that's usually an unspoken character that you wouldn't actually have any normal contact with.
I love that. Okay, so I can talk to a Trump supporter. I mean, I got him in my family. Well, not on my black side. I don't know. I just felt like I felt like I had to say that, but I could do that. But like, there's a difference between like when is there a line where it's like, okay, I can have a conversation with this person, or like this person really is so firm in different values than me that like. Do you feel like we can talk to anybody? Like, so for instance, I don't think I could talk to a guy in the KKK. And let me rephrase. Now, if I had to do it for my job, like I'm in the jail. I'm a jail counselor, and I get assigned to someone that's a Aryan brother, and that's my job. I'm gonna have to do my job and talk to the Aryan brother.
Right.
Or if I'm a doctor and Aryan, go in surgery and I get a patient with a big swastika on his chest, I'm gonna do my job. But like going out of my way to talk to someone, like, do you believe that we can talk to anyone? Or you just like, man, like, I really don't, like, there's even me, Todd, that we're exploring this, talking about differences. There are people like, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to engage them. This is a firm non-talk person, non-collaboration. I'm not talking to them.
So I have a split view on this. One is I think we can talk to anyone. Okay. And I think Daryl Davis, he had a really great TED talk of here's a black man in the South who basically was a jazz pianist, and when he got off stage, someone started talking to him and a white guy started talking to him and saying how much he appreciated his music, and saying like, I didn't know, I didn't know that I could listen and love the music of someone who's black. You were the first black person I've ever listened to before. And it ended up being that this guy was part of the KKK. And he spent his life, I think it's 250 people he's flipped.
Yeah, we see that. I heard a lot of this story.
Remove their memberships.
I think there's a lot of guys like that. I heard a lot of story like that. But
so one side is that we can talk to anyone. At the other side is we are all time impoverished, time poverty. We just have we have a limited amount of energy and time in our lifespan, in our days, in our weeks, in our months that happens there. Why would we spend this time spending it with people that we don't care for them? Their values disaffirm our own. We kind of have a lack of regard and respect for them because what they care about is antithetical to what you believe in. When there's so many people that are good, kind, benevolent characters that we're never going to get a chance to talk to in the first place. Why would we spend our time with, the darker elements of humanity that happens there? So I think it's worth considering both of these, is that you should have good boundaries in terms of how you give your time and energy in a given day, in a given week. And I think only if there is a really functional reason to talk to someone whose views you abhor, not the personhood, but their views that you abhor, you should have a good rationale for doing so. So if that person is a pivot point in terms of a pivotal vote for something you're trying to do, or is a pivotal power player, they are the head of the automaker association in Virginia, if that's a thing that happens there, and you have friends that are in the auto industry, and so this to in terms of strategically wielding power, it might be of benefit because you can see like the downstream effects would be valuable, and you wouldn't meet them necessarily at their hatred for people that are gay or people of color. You would meet them in terms of, here's the power they wield and I want access to it, and so I'm doing this as a means to an end, not as an end in itself.
Okay, I love that. So I'm gonna bring that to another level of things, right? So let's say we're being very strategic. We know that people have direct, separate ideologies than us, but we know that we're going to engage strategically because we're going to get a job done, or collaboration. But then you go back to your group, and then they call you a sellout for doing it. Case in point, President Trump had the meeting with all the presidents of HBCUs. And they did it. They're strategically, and I wasn't camp. Like, I get the point. Like, I was camp. Like, they're going to get business done. But there was people online saying, "How dare these presidents of HBCUs be with Trump?" Da 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 da. But the meeting probably benefited. I can't remember if they got a lot more money or something. It benefited the HBCUs, or the conversation was okay. So how do you talk to your own people and be like, yeah, I know this person that I'm engaging with has separate values than me, yada, 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 but I'm going to explain to you the reason I'm doing this is for the benefit of the great good in the group. I'm not selling out, which is no one wants to sell out, and explain that. Because I think, honestly, I would say I'd be very torn because I would see the value. Like, I'm gonna have a meeting with this guy. Like, I'm gonna do it. This is my job. I'm gonna do it. But at the same time, I know I'm gonna get flamed from my group. I'm gonna get flamed on Twitter from Black Twitter talking about I'm some sellout, and they make memes about me, which happens. So right. How do you navigate both of that? Because that's a very tough choice.
It's interesting because when you brought the example up earlier about if you were in a meeting, how can you disagree with the group and what's the timing for doing that? That was the question you asked earlier. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I thought of, because what I do is consult with organizations, I meet with the leaders in terms of how can you create space so that someone could disagree with you and disagree with the majority of the group. How can you allow a minority of one person to hold a view that's divergent from everyone else? And if it's credible, it's interesting, and it's thought-provoking, that you could actually create a culture where that actually has some room to breathe that happens here. So along the lines of how do we change leadership to allow these kind of, for lack of a better word, sketchy interactions and communications, mm-hmm. I think we need to model the value of there are some things that are ambivalent. There are some things where we have mixed emotion reactions to. And I think the way to go back to your people after a meeting like that, where you know ahead of time that some people are going to say that you're a sellout, to say, listen, This was not a 100% thumbs up. We're excited. Like we were like ecstatic to meet this character. We were ambivalent. And let me walk you through first what we knew were the costs. We were willing to absorb the tension and the rejection and negative valuation we're willing to accept. And the criticism we're willing to accept because this is what we're gaining from it. And just to be clear, we're not happy about this, but happiness is not the only thing that we're looking for. We're looking for meaning, purpose, long-term health, and sustainability. With those multiple goals in mind, we did this knowing that you who are upset at us and other people are going to say what's going to happen. And I want you to know, it hurts us, it upsets us, but we're willing to absorb because we care about the health and longevity of the group.
Yeah, now I like that. It's basically communication, transparency, and also just being like just being honest. Like you're gonna do it, and you're talking about the greater good and all that. So, because as an aspiring leader, I would say I'm an aspiring leader. I don't feel like I made it yet, or whatever it is. But like that's one of the things that I've always wondered about is that as I ascend in leadership or ascend, right, hold on firm to values, right. But then as you get higher and higher in values, higher and higher in leadership, there's times where your values, I feel like, are more challenged.
Yeah.
Like, it's not challenging. When you're just doing your normal life, living life, you be like, I'm never going to talk to people that are terrible because I'm doing it. But then you go up to, like, leadership, and you're like, oh, I had to talk to people that are terrible because I need to get money for the school.
Right.
Like, I got to do not terrible things, but I got to do things that are against my values because I put my values to the side for the greater good. And that is a really hard challenge because I think it comes up with a lot of ascension leadership is that, like, you're with the people, you're doing the things for the people. And then as you ascend as a leader, you got to make decisions that, probably are not the most favorable. And we're talking about that in insubordination. Like, you're going to make a decision that's not popular, but you have to do it. That's what leadership is.
Yeah, that's why you make the not so big bucks is for those decisions. So it gets to the question of why do more people not dissent from the status quo when they know there's a better way? And there are two thoughts that pop up that are often we're not consciously aware of, but we kind of know. One is, what if this was such a good idea, why wouldn't people already be doing this? That happened there. There's a little humility every one of us has, which is, why would I be a dissenting voice and not a majority voice if this was so intelligent, so wise, such the perfect direction to go? And I think a lot of us say to ourselves the majority must be right because they have the numbers on their side. So that's one reason why you don't see sufficient dissent. The second one is, I don't want to deal with the unnecessary pain. Life is hard enough as it is, and I don't want to go on Black Twitter and see a bunch of people say that I should be fired. And I don't want to go on Black Twitter and people doxing me and putting my phone number out and saying they should write letters and email to my place of employment and tell people I'm a horrible person and post pictures and memes of me. The thing is that psychologically we are more inclined to weigh the negatives than the positives in our lives. And we can have great interactions with our romantic partners, great interactions with our friends, great interactions with our kids. And all it takes is 2 messages online from perfect strangers. But our brain processes as the group is about to leave me behind and kick me to the curb. And you feel this sense of disengagement and you feel this sense of banishment that's about to occur, even though logically it could be like 2 anonymous trolls from Ukraine that are talking to me, but still your brain process. And so you say to yourself, I'm just going to agree with the herd. It's just easier. And what I'm arguing for is we should put cultural evolution as something we care about and the cultures that we care about. So if you care about historically Black colleges and that's your culture, which is that I'm willing to absorb the pain because I know this is the way where we can do better, we can function better, and we'll be stronger. And it's a short-term crappy communication to get there.
Yeah, no, I was like, I think we actually went in a macro thing. Remember I told you earlier that I thought one person represented a whole group, and I ostracized myself from that group because I felt like that person. It's like literally I think we do magnify negative voices more than the positive voices. because now I know that there was like way more positive voices, but that negative one magnified and made me feel some type of way. And so I don't know, like how do we juggle this? I'm really like torn because I think you're giving really concrete, very logical, like almost like Spock ways to look at it. Like, wow, like, yeah, of course, man, I could talk to the group and, be very logical and tell my rationale. But like, I'm thinking so much of pain and emotion, like it's not easy. It's not as clear, right?
I mean, I hope you're feeling it. I mean, I really wanted to come across as that.
I'm feeling
no,
it
it's
too.
good. Like, people, maybe not publicly, but privately, one-on-one. Every time I've dissented from where I work, now it's Mason. I used to work on the New York Stock Exchange floor. I used to work in hospitals. And when I would disagree with the group, publicly, it'd be silence. And then privately, people are like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said the thing. Like, I've been wanting to say that for years. It happens there. And that's what you hold on to. I remember I was at a soccer game with one of my daughters. So I have 3 daughters.
I remember this. I think I remember this story.
And I have a rule for soccer. So this is so we're talking about 13 and under right now for soccer. The rule is you could never yell at a kid on the other team. It's a freaking 12-year-old girl. Could be 12-year-old boy. Same thing. Just never yell their name.
It's not worth it. Yeah.
So there's a dad on our team of like like on my side, and he starts yelling, yo, 24, watch with the elbows, stop pushing people. Yo, 24, why are you touching everybody? And I turned to him I took a deep breath, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe no one else is saying this to him. I'm gonna have to be the one that always has to say something. I'm like, listen, you can't yell at the girl. You could yell at the ref, you could yell at their coach, you could yell at me. You can't yell at the girl because we don't want a bunch of parents on the other side yelling at our kids. That happened there. And he starts cursing me out, and he's all upset at me. And it was like, I was so anxious. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get into a fight with a dad.
My stomach would bubble too.
I'm like, I'm going to see this guy every week for the next 3 years. And it's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to have to stand at separate sides. And once he walked away after cursing me out, 5 moms came over to me like, oh my God, I've been wanting to say that for like a year. And I'm thinking to myself, why do I always have to say something?
I get that. Okay.
And that's why you can absorb
that was not a fun what was the outcome though? Did he yell at you some more? Did it get better? Because because you just opened a door. I mean, that's a great story. You got some moms giving you a pat on the back, and then you still see the jerk later. Like, that's not fun. Like, then you literally just open a door for more pain over and over again.
So that day was a terrible level of anxiety and indignation and indigestion. The next time we saw each other, he's like, you know what? He apologized. He's like, listen, I got heated. I'm upset. And I'm like, listen, I have nothing against you. I'm thinking of like 2 moves ahead. I don't want other dads yelling at our girls. He's like, yeah, I get it. And actually, we were never friends before that moment. But now, I don't want to say we're friends, but we're definitely friendly.
Yeah.
And it improved our relationship. Now, I'm not saying that it always goes in that direction. But if it didn't go in that direction, I would feel a sense of self-respect. And I won the self-respect from the majority of parents on our side. And you could take that as a win in terms of you lived in a way aligned with your values. And you think about, when you think about raising the next generation, I want to raise a bunch of kids who are going to be self-advocates. And when someone picks on someone else, when someone picks on them, when someone says the wrong thing, where they can say, listen, I know some people found that funny. I'm going to be honest. Like, I kind of don't like homophobic jokes in front of me. That happens there. Like, it's cool to raise kids that way. And they're going to be like, oh, man, why are you always ruining the mood like that? That happens there. Mm-hmm. But you know what? When that situation ends, people come back and they say, you know what? I'm glad you stood up.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said something that happened there. And that's what I'm saying. What I'm suggesting is that this is not a pain-free way to live. But there are 3 paths of the good life. There's the happy path. And that's where we are deviating from disagreeing and dissenting because we found a healthier, better way. There's the meaningful, purposeful life. That's what we're talking about. Like really meaningful, significant activity. Doing something that will contribute to the betterment of your group, of humanity, of your kids' lives, of other kids' lives. And then there's the psychologically rich life where it's not about happiness or meaningful. It's just that it's about perspective, variety, novelty, exploring things that intrigue you that happens there. And I think we give too much weight to the happy life and insufficient weight to the meaningful life and the rich life. Like, live a life that's interesting. Live a life of adventure. Like, challenge people that are racist, sexist, homophobic, ageist, and don't do it in a mean way, because, and if no one else is willing to step up to them, it's even more beautiful that you're the one with sufficient values that matches your actions.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. Like, I'm thinking about the way you challenge it too. Is like, it wasn't like you could just be calm. And like I told you before we got on this podcast, I was like, a lot of this invoked the spirit of my the spirit of my father-in-law, where like to dissent and really do things. It doesn't always. It could just be like challenging, but like in a calm way. He was always really good at that. Like just questions and asking questions, and it got people thinking. And he could, like, I think he literally could talk to anyone. And then he literally be like, "But I don't make no sense." But everyone loved him. No one said anything negative about him. The only thing they could say negative about him was that, like, one, he just couldn't dress like me. I couldn't dress. I can't dress. But he could listen to everybody. He was really good at it. But I believe that he did live a hard life, right? Because I think he was constantly challenging people that didn't want to do healthcare for everybody, right? So he's probably going to conversations, or he was challenging people, like, he wasn't very faith-based, but he was engaging pastors to make sure that they were on board for early education. So he was always in spaces with people different than him, and they all loved him. But I don't think it was the easiest life.
Yeah.
I don't think it's easy. And I'm finding that, like, I'm really listening and really absorbing that you can have a meaningful life with spots of joy, but that life is not going to be without pain. Like, then that's okay, right? Like, I'm saying I'm a very happy person, but I recently had a lot of sadness. But overall, I could tell you, I think I'm happy. If that makes sense. Like, I like that. I like that thing of, like, having a purposeful life is not the avoidance of pain. It's going to happen. Or the avoidance of conflict. It's going to happen. But doing that, experiencing pain, I've learned to appreciate things more. Going through conflict, like you did with the gentleman, led to a positive outcome. So it's like almost like you got to take that deep breath, and you're just like, it's going to hurt, but you're going to do it, because it leads to a better feeling, I think.
I mean, in some ways, another way of looking at it is you look at these crucibles, these moments, as springboards to seeing what you're made of, like what your strengths are and what you're capable of. I mean, it's why we work out. It's why people do marathons. It's why people do Spartan races of it's why people play sports. It's why people like competition, pickleball. It's why we like to ascend the ladder of our career. It's not just to get money. We like the advancement because we like to see like what leadership capacities are inside us that have yet to be unlocked, that happens there. And we do this knowing that there's something else in the engine that has yet to be utilized. There are other gears. And so when you have a moment when you're at Target and someone in front of you, two people in front of you, is yelling at the cashier and no one's saying anything, this is like a crucible. It's a test. Like, are you willing to stand up for the cashier and get between them? Or are you going to be one more person that's going to be a bystander and observe this happening? And we have these moments online where everyone's doing a pile on somebody. And there's an opportunity for you to say, listen, I think this is enough. I think they've gotten enough. Like, I think they got the message. And they're also human. That happens there. And that's hard. And some of that pile-on is going to come to you. But, man, the people that do that, like, I have such admiration for people that can take some of the heat off of someone that's got an disproportionate amount of pain thrown their way, even if they did something wrong.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, I like your analogy. I feel like I'm going to do that, like, take a deep breath and just, like, it's almost like, you're about to get punched in the face. So you're just, like, I think there's a thing about it, right? Like, if you take a deep breath and
loosen those muscles.
Yeah, if you prepare to get punched in the face, it's probably going to not hurt as bad. It's still going to hurt. So, like, I thought about that, too, like, now mentally, when I was going through the grieving of my father-in-law, like, knowing that he was going to pass, I think it was almost like we all took a mental deep breath, like a big thing, and went through it. right? And so I like your story of like even the scenario, like the breathing of like if you know you're gonna challenge someone, right? Like gather yourself, collect yourself, understand that this is gonna be an awkward situation with this soccer coach, and do it. Same thing. Like I know this is gonna be a sad moment. Gather yourself, breathe, whatever, and do it. And I think that's really hard when you're thinking about the insubordination, right? I think a lot of I think what we read from your book, I think people knew when they were challenging a system that they was going to get it. Like Darwin knew that when I do this, I'm going to get it. Martin Luther King knew when I'm going to do this, I'm going to get it. And they did it anyway. So like, what are some ways that you mentally prepare yourself? What is the overall long-term deep breaths that we can do?
I mean, the story of Darwin is, and we can play with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, who are almost made it into the book, except so much has been written about them. I think less people had written about Darwin. It's the only reason I chose him.
Yeah.
Was 32 people Darwin acknowledged in his preface for The Origin of Species, where he first laid out his theory of evolution. And this was sacrilegious because, I mean, this is not the world of today. I mean, everybody was religious. If you were an atheist, you just said, yeah, I'm religious. And then at home, you just pretended still you were religious until you went to sleep. And you just only internally would you reveal that you didn't believe in God. And so the idea that there was another process of how people could evolve, how species could evolve that didn't involve a creator was just sacrilege. And he knew that there were 32 people before him that attempted some idea of evolution. Most of them were killed. Most of them were physically assaulted. Most of them were banished. Most of them were fired, or they had police surveillance units that are on them. So he knew that when I bring up this idea, I am probably going to be in the camp of people that are banished, excommunicated, assaulted, fired, that happened there. And so he sat on the finished book for over 20 years. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 17 years he sat on the book before he published it, because there was a timing element where he wanted to know that society was in a place where they could listen to an idea with scientific evidence such that they didn't have to agree with everything, but would they give it a sufficient consideration? Would they elaborate on the idea to at least contemplate this had some merit to it? And so he waited for a few other people to get ideas out there to see that the idea that a creator did not have to be responsible for everything involving the transformation of fauna and flora in society. Once he realized that, now unleash this. And there's something valuable to take from that, which is, what have your predecessors done to challenge the system that showed that there are kinks in the armor and there are spaces where I can make some headway? And the beauty of, for example, of Martin Luther King Jr. was he was really good at mobilizing individuals in powerful positions that were not geographically anywhere near him that happened there. Like whatever, in this case, it was mostly black men whose literature was appreciated by the majority of white society. Black men who were pastors, who showed respect for black culture that happened there. He made sure that those people got a letter from him and a contact from him, and made sure that those people became proxies for the civil rights community to make inroads, that someone who was part of the in-group could then get credit for Martin Luther King's ideas and make sure that it got traction. And only then, after seeing that, did he actually become sufficiently strong enough to actually make his voice his voice as opposed to a proxy to actually sharing his ideas to the public. And so he tested the waters before he became the face of the civil rights movement.
I like it. So I'm gonna coin that as like the Darwin one is like a 17-year deep breath, and Martin Luther King, whatever. So it's like you know you're gonna go into it. You gather yourself, and you strategize. You look for allyship. Like, and I know you talked about that in your book. You already kind of weigh the risk. Like, man, it's gonna hurt, but is it gonna hurt as much as me selling out? Like, I rather live with this hurt than actually not do it. So they weighed it and said, well, this is a risk. This is a risk I'd rather take. I'd rather stand on this so much that whatever happens to me, I'm gonna do it anyway, and then do it. So it's a lot of contemplation. It's a lot of it. So we're in a very, I think, 17 years of sitting on a book and Martin Luther King reaching out to all these different people. I think my only caveat, or not say negative, not negative, my only thing is, I feel like we're a quicker society, right? We don't have, like, your story was to stand up, right, in these micro moments, you took a deep breath and did it. I don't feel like we have enough time to do 17 years to wait on our ideas or align with all these people. We got to get things done. Do you think that time is a little different with these decisions, or do you think we need to actually slow down and really gather ourselves like these other two gentlemen did?
I think it's actually one of the best evidence-based strategies to have mental fortitude and deal with this social persecution that's probably going to come, which is, imagine what would you think if you took inaction 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And when you're able to actually do that mental calculus and realize the regret of not doing something is more painful in terms of intensity, and it's more enduring than it is for action, for doing something embarrassing, for making a mistake, for mistiming things, you will appreciate yourself, which is that, listen, at least I went up to bat. Like, at least I went into the arena that happened there. But the inaction...
Oh, the arena. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, no, that's Teddy, man.
Man in arena. That's my favorite quote.
I've got the same quote on my wall as well. It's too long for a tattoo, but it should be on everyone's leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think most of the idea that we're in a faster cycle of time is artificially imposed on us by the way social media has infiltrated our lives. And I think we should really steal it back, in that we have more time than we think.
Yeah.
And it's worth... Creativity is hurt by urgency, and high quality decision making is affected by urgency. So unless we're EMT workers, unless we are deciding war and peace at the time, most decisions do have a larger time span than we think. And it's worth thinking of, is this being imposed by external constraints, where actually there is a life and death scenario to an organization, to the bottom dollar, that's happening there? Or is this internally, do I feel a sense of anxiety and impulsivity that's not actually resonating with what the real world contingencies are? Yeah.
Now I was thinking about that too. Now I'm thinking about it like things that have come to fruition, things that I've actually, really worked hard at it. This podcast is like 5 years. I got a world-renowned author on it 5 years later. No, but I was saying, like, a lot of times, like, I think we had this metric of that we had to hit milestones in a certain time, and I think I like and getting back to the point of insubordination too, like, also the changes that we want to make. I think there's this tie to, like, if we don't make action now, the world's gonna get worse. But at the same time, if I don't think about it, strategize, connect with the right people, breathe, be a better messenger, and craft my message better, then I'm going to do more harm impulsively than I would if I would have just waited and did all the other things. So it's like a balancing act. And I'm learning that too. Like, I'm actually learning that as a person. Like, when I challenge things, right, or want to challenge things, maybe slow down. Who do I need to talk to ahead of time? Start doing that. Is this the right time to do it? Maybe not at the first meeting when we're all together for the first time, right? Maybe it could be a meeting that's a month away, that I get all the different points of view. So I'm actually going to really embed that too. Like, one, crafting my message, gathering myself, but also it's like slowing down. Like, because I want to challenge something or be quote unquote insubordinate, it doesn't need to happen right now. I can actually game plan and really think about it thoughtfully before I do this challenge.
I like to put these things in competition with each other. So I think of speed versus ease. So the group that you're part of will appreciate speed. Yeah. You go back to the firefighters. Like, try to get in the fire truck to the scene of the fire as quickly as possible. There's an appreciation of speed, but there's also ease. And if you can make a sell and make it clear, listen, this will make it harder for us to make a decision in terms of it'll take longer to consider an alternative view, but I want to explain what I'm imagining in terms of why this is going to be less costly for you in terms of your time, your effort, and money if you consider this alternative. And what makes an alternative message work is when it's easy for people to adapt, to say, listen, so I'll give you an example. As we become more politically divisive in the culture, there's a lot of questions organizations are asking in terms of how do we prevent people from talking politics at work and not rip each other's heads off, and how do we get them to focus on the work itself, especially when it's, presidential primaries and people are, people are just about to vote for, an election cycle. One way for increasing civility in the workplace that's been suggested by people is having a one-page checklist that's on everyone's chair before they walk into a room, and it lists all the behaviors and all the values you have in the group, and make sure that people read this by checking off the boxes physically before they start a conversation. So it might say is, make sure that you don't speak 2 times in a row. Make sure that people that are newcomers in the group, that their voice, you consider their voice and call on them and ask what they think, as opposed to just the loudest people and the most senior people speaking the most. Make sure if you are a leader in this room that you speak last, not first. Make sure that there's not a disproportionate number of men speaking or women speaking or white people speaking that are happening there. So having them check these boxes off beforehand primes them to think of, okay, let me really think about diversity in this room. Let me really think about the types of people in this room. Let me really think of the group memberships in this room right before you speak. The beauty of having the one-pager about civil discourse and thinking about diversity right before a meeting takes place is it's easy. It's like just before we're talking, people are just getting in there and kind of waiting for the conversation to start. People are thinking right then and there, okay, I want to acknowledge that not everyone's in the same race in this room. Not everyone's of the same sex in this room. Not everyone has the same perspective in this room. And you want people thinking about that before every single conversation. It's not something you want on a website or on the wall, because people stop looking at that wall and people stop looking at the website. So it's the ease allows for quick, efficient, effective implementation every single time that the group meets.
I'm actually going to do that. I was literally thinking about a checklist I needed for myself. I challenged myself one time because I talked too much. As I said, I was only going to say one comment during a whole meeting, like a one comment, and like raise my hand, use the little Zoom raise my hand thing. And I did that once, and everyone thought I was like sad or something. And I was like, damn,
that tells you something.
Yeah, so I literally was going to put in there like only speak when I'm spoken. I'm going to try it. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to ping you. I'm going to try it this week too. I'm going to try like literally not talking, like in group meetings, I'm going to sit there and only say one thing the whole time. See what happens.
But there is a question though, in terms of, does the room look to you for fuel and excitement, and you're the one that asks the questions that other people are afraid to ask? If that's the case, does it cost? I mean, it's worth thinking and collecting feedback.
I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to see if it's actually
what happens without you.
I want to see if it actually disrupts more or it actually helps, because maybe I know myself. Maybe I am monopolizing. I talk a lot, but maybe it's like one of those times like, do I need to say what needs to be said? So I'm gonna try it. I like, funny. You already know me. I like to try like social experiments and just try random stuff on people and see what they actually do and how they react. Like when I ask people like, how do you identify? Do you identify as black male? And just see people do it. I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I do it all the time. Or like, I don't know, I just do random stuff. Like recently, I went on a bus, and every time someone got on the bus, I said hello, and I wanted to see how many people said hello back, and it was like 1 out of 10.
You had like your umpire clicker?
No, I had actually a tally mark. like I literally was saying, but like I like to like just kind of like mess around, but I like to observe, and so I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try some of your. Because tying this all back, your book actually gave concrete things to think about. And I was actually implementing them, and I still do, thinking about like talking to people or the message in them. I think one thing I did really remember from your book was like, not necessarily is it the age old adage, the message, not the messenger. So I worked on actually becoming a better public speaker, because I was like, maybe sometimes my words are lost because I'm not conveying it right. And so I worked on slowing down and all that stuff. So I don't know. I just want to say your book was really good, and I really appreciate that we finally got this on the books.
Oh, this isn't the first. This is the first part of like a 10-part series.
All right. Well, honestly, we could. So let's end this one for part 1, and then we're gonna. So this one, I think in my mind, I'm calling it conformity versus insubordination, because we talked a lot about conformity and whatnot. And then maybe another one we'll talk about like.
What about fitting in versus standing out?
That's a better title. Is that the one you want to? I like that one better.
It's like smoother.
All right, fitting in versus fitting out. Okay, that's it. I wrote it on a piece of book. But if you listen to my podcast, which I think you have, this part of the show is called Shot for Shot. I mean, I get to ask you any random question. You get to ask me any random question. You want to go first? I go first.
Oh, you go first. But I love this though.
All right, so this is the first time you've been to my house, right? And I already apologized when you got here. What was your first inclination when you drove up to my house? And people know, so you can tell them. And why did you tell me not to apologize when I apologized?
Oh, this is great. Okay. So first off, for all of your listeners, Phil lives in a house that's 5 times the size of any house I've ever lived in my entire life. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous. My first reaction was, you live in an extremely wealthy, elite neighborhood, and you are such a down-to-earth person, and you're so playful, and you're so goofy that this was not the neighborhood that I imagined you picking for you and your family.
I mean, like, honestly, I still am. Like, I don't think that I honestly feel weird too, because I feel like it doesn't match who I am.
No, that's what I'm saying. I felt that.
It didn't match my father-in-law. Like, we always talked about it. Like, he always just, every single one of us apologized, but on the end of the day, like, we did it because, like, we're not, like, we did it together.
You like pooled resources.
We pooled resources.
Yeah, it's a smart way of getting the greatest things in life.
I was about to say this though, and I'm really going. That's another thing I'm gonna work on. But we pulled our resources. It was part of my father-in-law's plan. I need to work on it. I'm not apologizing no more.
Definitely do not apologize.
Why? Because, like, I guess, I mean, because it didn't come out of directly my paycheck, and I'm not a super rich man. I don't know, but, like, I'm rich in family and relationships. I think this was actually the benefit of you know what? This was not the benefit of a lot of money. This was the benefit of a positive relationship.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. I wish I said it for you, but yes. Because
I have a healthy relationship, I was able to live in this house.
Yeah. Three generations getting along together. I mean, this is the ultimate family dream that everyone looks for in every country.
Yeah. So
why shouldn't good things happen to families that are able to communicate, like hang out, not hate each other, and
let me escape to my she shed?
Yeah.
With no internet.
So not only does he have an amazing house, but he has an amazing she shed, which is like 1.5 miles away from the house, which means
with no
you can exercise daily.
With no internet, and I need to work. I'll show you my stuff. But like I think that was my question. I always ask people, and I feel like I'm glad you brought that up. Like I didn't lose myself moving out here. Like I didn't lose who I was. I don't act pompous or whatever.
This neighborhood needs Phil.
Yeah, they're pretty nice people.
I'm sure they no, but you could be nice, but I feel like you're gonna bring like some spunk and funk.
Oh, I did.
To the neighborhood.
No, I definitely do. All my kids do, but at the same time, it's still funny as hell. I don't know. It's interesting.
Can I tell you about the apology thing of why? Because I always stop people from apologizing to me.
Yeah.
It's a little bit nerdy, so I'm gonna tell you about a research study.
I'm taking it.
Okay. 1974, Berkeley, they basically studied the benefits of apologies. And what they realized was apologizing has never been an effective way to persuade people after a transgression. And by the way, you didn't have a transgression, so you didn't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. All apologies tend to do is they affect likability, but not the degree to which people will consider an idea. But they don't even affect likability. They make people dislike you less. So that's the main benefit of apology, is a little bit less dislike. And to me, that has such little benefit in terms of, by not apologizing for something that you feel strongly about, and it's just part of your identity or part of your world, or just an accidental mishap you had, you can just acknowledge of the relationship, your life, and not having to take anything back from. It's like almost like not honoring the fact that you're a fallible human like everybody else.
Well, I remember one time I did a speech. You know, I'm doing public speaking in Toastmasters, and I apologized, and they said, by you apologizing during the speech, then we actually caught that you messed up. So if you would have just went with it and not apologized, we wouldn't even notice that you messed up.
And if you mess up, just integrate it as that's just what people do who are in
Nervous.
flow. They're in flow.
Yeah. So working on not apologizing. Dang, I'm working on apologizing appropriately. How about that? Because I still think we should reconcile. But at the same time, I did not do, like you said, I didn't do any transition to apologize. But it's just, I don't know, man. It's weird. I just still feel weird. I wake up every day and I like literally blink and I'm like, yo, like this is not how I pictured my life, like pre-pandemic. Like honestly, not even say my life and the macro big life. I meant like more so like we were chopping it up and there was no pandemic and then I wake up now. Like I literally did not put this on my bingo card of life.
I do love the image of you basically live in a McMansion and you're walking around in a horrible wife beater, white t-shirt and jeans, and you never take off your shoes at any point in time walking through your beautiful house.
Yeah, and then my wife, she don't like. Yeah, she told, don't say that. Yeah, I'm supposed to take off my shoes. I literally am living like I don't know what I'm doing. And
Like it's not your house.
And then I got like a 16-year-old dog that's like he don't know what he's doing here either. Like he's probably still outside. He didn't go back in the house.
We tried to get him in here. He just didn't follow us.
So I don't know. See, we learned it. You're dropping gems. I'm not apologizing. So what's your question for me?
Oh, this is good. Okay, so you are one of the kindest, most generous people that I know.
Yeah, I think so.
And so what I'm wondering is there's always a trade-off. So I wonder like the cost for you for like putting other people first so often in your world. There's always a trade-off.
Well, I was talking to my actual mentor the other day and she was like, Philip, you have a great ability to make new friends. So I got that, but also you're a good ability to maintain friendships. So I'm not just like the person that makes new friends and ghosts people. I make friends and I maintain it. She's like, that's a rarity. And then I really thought about it really hard. And the trade-off is that came from a place of pain. And what I mean by that, like, you know, not to go like to big Freudian stuff, but I've always had this desire to have sustainable, long friendships when I was a kid, but I was a military kid. And so I think I've constantly always like made a new friend and lost it, made a new friend and lost it. And I think it kind of just made me feel, and just normal, like even on the flip side, even going to my parents a little bit, we're not the huggy, nurtury, mushy family. So combined moving a lot and not the huggy family, I think I was always constantly yearning for one, emotional connection and real deep feeling relationships, and ones that were long term.
Yeah.
So with that being said and pulling this full circle, I think it's a lot of weight where I think I sometimes sacrifice self and my own needs and burnout and actually terrible time management because I have this sense of like not being connected to people. Like honestly, you saw this today. I literally have not made it one day without someone. Like I went to a conference, right? I went to a conference, got home late last night, had one night by myself, and I literally cannot have a full day by myself. Like I can't. Like I met my mentor for a walk, and I'm connecting with you right now. Like, and I don't know if that's like a sense of like I cannot be by myself. I feel like I have to be connected to someone. I literally got a free pass tonight, and I can't even have that because I'm like I don't want to be alone. So I think that's a roundabout way of saying I exuberate kindness because it also is self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right. The self-fulfilling part is if I am kind and I put others first and I help other people, which is great. And I think that's a great service to the world, and doing that, I won't be alone. Like I literally think that I put in this in my like, what is your biggest fears? One of my biggest fears is dying alone. And when I mean like dying, like I could be in a room by myself, but I meant like no one gives a shit about me.
Right.
Like I literally was like, how does that happen to people? Where like we have stories where, you know, packed funerals, but there's stories out there where no one even went to that. They just got, I don't know how they got buried or no one paid for it. They just, I don't know. There's stories like that. I was like, that could happen to me.
I feel like you would be the one that would go to these funerals and spend your entire Saturdays and Sundays just to make sure that there was someone at the funeral.
I would do a speech. I'd just make up something like, can I get their obituary and I have to read it out loud?
I need one paragraph about their life.
Yeah. Like, I don't know this guy. I'm going to read the story about his life. Shout out to you, man. And then like walk out. Like, cause that, that literally, like, you know, I said I just saw, you know, witness my father-in-law passing. Love pouring that, like, everyone gave him his flowers ahead of time. Like, I literally have a deep-seated fear that I will be by myself.
I feel, yeah. No, this actually, I really like this perspective. I think I'm going to steal this perspective to think about this. But yours is going to be, what's the George Mason, the amphitheater where the Mason basketball team plays? The Patriot Center?
Eagle Bank? Patriot
We'll still
Center?
call it the Patriot Center.
It still is. Still Patriot Center.
Yeah, I feel like yours is going to be the Patriot Center. Your funeral.
No. It's gonna be my backyard right here with like two people and like a slow clap.
Not because then there's going to be crowds that are in your neighbors' yards and they're going to hate your wife because they're going to be sitting there.
So I mean,
taking up space.
So that is the dark side or your upside. I need to get that book too. I'm gonna read it. But the caveat of this kindness and connection and altruism, which means still is that like I know I'm doing good. So I know it's not just, but the selflessness part is I'm doing good to build up enough social credit that I will not be alone.
I appreciate your rawness. This is one of many characteristics that I like about you. Like, you are emotionally raw. Yeah. Which is great.
But at the same time, I think that's a negative perception that my father-in-law was like, or even everyone was like, but that's irrational. Like, you can call someone and they'll come over, or you can go somewhere, you can go to someone else's house. But I had this thought like that, like, I don't know. I think what would be my torture, like, literally. I mean,
solitary confinement.
You literally nailed it. Like, I literally would just be like,
oh yeah,
that would be horrible to me.
I mean, your gift is social effervescence.
I would
so I get that.
To the wall. I feel like I'd find a loophole. Like, I would throw notes and get like a little note back that like someone wrote me a paragraph or something. That would be like, I'd find some way to like have to talk to somebody.
You would probably develop alters, so you were talking to different versions of yourself and writing letters to yourself and having conversations.
I would do that because that's it. That is legit the opposite end of my kindness. My kindness is not no Machiavellian, I need to get over on people.
Yeah.
The kindness is rooted in I want to be good to other people so that I will not be alone.
By the way, that is like, so if they had a dating service, it was just like Friendster, like seeking friends. The idea of a guy seeking deep, meaningful, long-term friendships is such a beautiful thing. Like, to have that a priority.
That's not normal. We talked about this.
No, it's atypical. I think no. So one thing that we know is that people that are married for a long period of time, like decades, like 40, 50, 60 years, if the man in heterosexual relationships, if the man dies first, the woman tends to live for quite a number of years after. But if the woman dies first, men tend to die quickly after their wife dies because they don't form those deep social bonds that women tend to, on average. Okay,
first of all, we already had this discussion. As a black male with the lowest life expectancy, I'm dying before my wife. So shout out to that. She's got 10 more years than me. Now, second to that, if by God forbid she does, I'm actually gonna now purposely. What's the average?
Oh, it's a few years.
How many? Like 2?
I don't remember the exact number.
Well, because I'm going for the record. Because I'm gonna be the most social widower ever.
I like this.
I'll be out there.
So by you marrying a white woman, you just gave your boys how many extra years of life on average?
I don't know. They might get my gene. I don't know. I know
50% each.
50%. I don't know because I know it's 88 for the white and it's 80 for the black man, something like that. I don't know. Point is, lowest life expectancy. But with that being said, you're right. Like I think now that I'm thinking about it, that's atypical because I would be out there, man. I'll be out there. I'm gonna be in my frat. I'll be like, I'm out there, 80 years old. I'm out there. I'll make friends.
I mean, you won't have a day by yourself. You're gonna have calling somebody every day.
The only way I will not have friends is if I've like lost my mind or my mental capacity. But if I have that part, a wheelchair, whatever, I don't care. I'm out there.
You've already collected just having hung out with you for a few hours before this podcast.
I just need my mind. That's all I need.
If you just retain the stories up to age 30 alone, that's enough to have a lifetime of friendships. As long as you're retelling that.
As long as I have my mind, I think that won't happen to me. Because I'll do fun stuff. I won't be bored. I'll be out there.
I believe that.
Yeah. So that's been a great episode. Actually, I want to do another question. Can you give me another random question? This actually made me think. I'll give you another one.
Oh, yeah. No.
One more, and then we do it. This is like the longest shot for shot ever. All right. So, you sent me the song from Radiohead. Now, fun story is I've listened to that song, but I didn't recognize that song. I listened to the normal version, and then I loved it because I recognized the Sucking on Lemons and the lemons, whatever. And that was from high school when I was actually listening. Like, I listened to everything. I was...
Incubus?
I was 03. No, that's when I graduated high school. So I was like Incubus and...
Aqueous Transmission, the last song on that album?
Yes. I like Mexico better, but that's me. You know Mexico?
Yeah. But I mean, that's like...
Really chill.
That's really B-side.
I was like, whatever. I'm listening to everything. But the point is, what is a song or genre that when you share that you listen to, someone actually says, what? Remember, like black, white music, whatever.
Yeah.
What's someone like, I listen to that. People are like, for real? That's your junk? Like, I don't know. Did you see me when I said I listen to Incubus? Did that surprise you?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So what is that? What's your surprise? Like when you say you listen to that.
Damn, that is a good freaking question. Let me take a second for that. I'm trying to think of that Icelandic band. It's not Hoobastank. It's
Bjork?
No, not Bjork. This was after Bjork. The name of the album is Gobbledygook, but I can't remember the name of the...
Oh.
Who's the band? That's the album, Gobbledygook.
Okay, we're going to look that up. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
So people say it's surprise.
Well, it's soft and melodic. It's basically like a bunch of hippies holding hands and running up a hill, and this is the soundtrack.
And you listen to very hard stuff.
Yeah. I'm like Sepultura, Halloween, Exodus. So this is a very atypical Todd song.
Okay, what's your next question for me before we shout out?
If we travel cross country,
yeah,
and then we have to stop at like a Wawa or a 7-Eleven in the middle of the night, 3:00 a.m. Nothing else is open.
Okay.
And then you can't get peanuts. What are you getting for the remainder of the trip cross country?
How far are we? How close are we?
We're like in Ohio. We're going to California.
Yeah, we're not even halfway yet.
Yeah, we got a long way to go.
Well, I'm getting a whole case of Red Bulls. I know that for sure. I'm getting either that Red Bulls or a bunch of Mountain Dew. And I'm just getting a bunch of chips, most likely sour cream and onion chips, and not the beef jerky packs because just you crush beef jerky.
Get the protein.
And then I'm gonna get like the big Costco, like not Costco, but the biggest bag of trail mix, just because I like trail mix with the nuts and the chocolate. Actually, I'm probably just gonna get the most random stuff, sour candies. I literally on road trips just pick the most random stuff, but get a lot of it. And make sure energy drink and water. You didn't tell me no budget. I'm just really sweeping the aisle. Like I'm sweeping the aisle and just getting a bunch of just eat any. Like I literally just get anything. And I get random things like when I go on road trips like that, I get things that I normally would never even buy in my house, like snacks that like I'd never even bring in the house, but I want to eat it on the road trip.
I think the only time people eat Bugles is on the road.
Yeah, that Bugles. What else?
Chex Mix.
Chex Mix. I don't really buy that normally. And the jerky, like I'm not buying jerky at home.
Well, you're
like,
definitely not eating the meat rods. What are those things called? Slim Jims.
To get those. Oh yeah, that's like you're right.
All right, so that's your simple question. That's just your setup question. You ready?
Yeah, what's the next one?
Okay. So I have this version of the afterlife that I imagine where you have to pick a memory and your afterlife is just you relive that memory over and over again and no other part of your identity exists. So it's complicated because if you pick the memory, anything that's not in that memory will not be part of eternity. So what would be the one memory you pick to relive over and over?
It's like Groundhog Day?
Sort of. But except you get to go through you get to go through the archives of all your memories. You pick one and you just loop it forever.
The same day?
No, just the memory, not even the day.
So that's even a micro one. That's kind of hard.
Yeah, just one memory.
Because I was thinking more like Groundhog Day, just read the same day over and over again, which is still torture. Like,
yeah, but it'll be fresh each time. It's not like Groundhog Day, so you're gonna enjoy it fresh each time.
But you will know it's fresh each time because you don't remember.
That's right. So it's fresh. In Groundhog Day, he kind of has he retains it.
That's why it's torture.
See, so I feel like your kids aren't in the memory; they're not part of eternity. But then you might that might be the best, exciting, intimate memory.
But I don't have it. What if I don't have it yet?
Well, let's just say we're going up in flames after this podcast. So this is it.
Oh, because I'm thinking I always be thinking of the future.
That's good. That's a good mentality.
One of my thoughts would be I always had this dream, which is going on the way left thing. I always look at my boys. One of the things I always thought would be the coolest thing ever, which might be my memory. Who knows? Maybe I'm just gonna pick this. I love my wife, but it's I love my wife a lot. I love my boys, but I love the fact that someday I have two half clones of me that we would do cool stuff together. Right now, we're hanging out, but me and my sons will be hanging out here, just hanging out, watching movies or watching sports. And then I had this picture, both my boys, Bennett is way taller than me, and just her dad with a deeper voice and give me a hug and all that stuff, but he's way taller than me. And then Miles is just super jacked. And just they're just straight athletes and beasts and smarter than me. All this is math equations. And I'm just sitting here hanging out with them. So this might be my memory. This might be it. I might manifest this. Where they're really just they're swole, my sons. They're jacked. But they're arguing over physics. So they're super jacked, but really intelligent, and that's what they clash about. And so they literally write equations on the wall, but then after a while they just start fighting each other. And then I'm just boys, stop. And this is really elaborate because I'm thinking about it I'm picturing it right now.
No, me too.
And they're boys, stop, and just hang out. Let's drink a beer. And then they just drink beer and we hang out here. And then her mom comes down here and tells us that we've been out here too long, and they were all in trouble.
I'm totally picturing the chalkboard.
And they snitch on me. They say it was Dad's idea to hang out here all day. So then we all get in trouble. That's my memory.
Oh my God. I'm so glad I asked you this question.
So we're all together. My wife's here. My wife's here. She happy. She got two healthy boys. But she literally is I got two grown men. No, actually, I got three grown men that drive me crazy. And I'm just sitting here I won. Because I got two homies to hang out with.
I freaking love this answer. By the way, I love the idea of jacked up nerds.
That's what I want. My son Bennett is so athletic, and he's a Bing pole. He's gonna be taller than me already. I don't know by science he is, but he's mathematically gifted. So I foster both. When I mean that is I want him I want him to have the best of both. Where I'm it's cool to be smart. Oh, your number, when he knows numbers, it's awesome. But then also he's very competitive and athletic. So then he wants to win. So he is when he plays basketball, it's Mamba mentality. So he wants to be good in athletics, but he also wants to be smart, and it's crazy. And then we watch Dragon Ball Z together. So he likes nerdy stuff like me and Pokemon. So it's the dopest thing ever.
So he's gonna in his high school yearbook, he's gonna be class clown, most likely to succeed, class body.
And
he's just cleaning house.
And he's handsome.
He's cleaning house.
Handsome. He's gonna be handsome. The only thing is that we all have negatives. The only negative is that he's also very like he could be condescending. Like I feel like he's smart mouth. He's smart mouth, so he's gonna have to like learn how to like not like talk back to the teacher. Like if the teacher's wrong or something like that, he'll be like, "That's dumb." Like, don't say that, bro. Like you gotta learn.
I mean, he'll get. How old is he now?
8.
I mean, he's gonna get wittier. He'll have
He
better
gets me.
responses to the teachers.
He gets me. He outwits me. I'm like, I don't like that. Don't talk to me like that. I say that like all the time. And then Miles, my other one, Miles is not like, Miles is more like a jock, but he's like the most like, he's mean, like a jerk mean, but everyone loves him. So like, they're like, oh, he's so cute, but he's like being rude. It's like, but he's charismatic. Everyone loves him. And he's the most extroverted person. Like, you think I'm extroverted? He literally walks up to adults and says, "Hi, I'm Miles. Hi. What's your name? Hi." And if the person don't say, he's like, "What's your name? What is your name?" And they're like, I've seen grown men go like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my name's John." Like, and then he'll grab their buddy.
You will engage with me.
Yeah, that's him. So I could see that growing up manifesting. Like they literally just clash all the time.
Oh my God. By the way, just notice how Phil lights up talking about his kids. This is great.
Yeah, and then also I light up how my wife is going to be annoyed with all of us because it actually happens. She literally is like, "What am I? I'm surrounded by you three," and like we all love her, so she's like the queen bee, but like at the same time it's like we outrank her.
She's gonna be nagging the three of you for all eternity in a loop.
100% all together. Like I literally have looked at our boys and said, "Shh, we're gonna get in trouble." I'm a grown man saying we're gonna get in trouble like with our kids. Like, see what you did? See what you like? I literally have said that to my kids. Like, see what you did? I told you to be quiet.
Yeah, but 8 years old and a boy is the ultimate age of any taboo, any bad word that you just pops out of your head accidentally. They're gonna hold on to that like.
Oh, he calls me for cursing a lot.
I mean, they're gonna use that at the most inopportune time possible, strategically.
He does that.
That's 8.
He snitches on me all the time. He tells me like we're watching Dragon Ball Z at bedtime. He's like, "Daddy's letting me watch video game like because we watch it on my phone." I'm like we gotta watch this next episode. So, like I literally have like a little best friend.
So
and then Miles
adorable.
is the same way too. Like he's just different. Like so that was my memory. My loop is I'm a grown man surrounded by 2 younger grown men that just hang out with me.
You got a good life ahead of you.
But that's the thing is that's why I'm kind too, because I don't want them to leave me either. Also, atypically, I know dads are not really super. I'm really gonna be on them. Like literally, I'm calling them all the time and texting them or just popping up at college. Like they can't get rid of me. Like literally.
I mean, this is good. You're gonna show up in the gym at 3:00 in the morning when they're deadlifting, and you're gonna show up in the back of the physics class when they're lecturing the teacher.
I'll be at the college. They're going to Mason for free. Like hopefully.
No, you gotta let them roam. You can't let them go down the block. And just
they're gonna be down the street.
Scooter over to George Mason back and forth.
No, actually, I really don't want them to go to Mason at all. I want them to go somewhere far away.
That's how I feel.
But also I'll pop up on them though.
But if it is free for our kids, I mean, we really have to just say yes. Unfortunately,
I'll just say they'd be smart enough. I'm popping up on them though. I am. Like if they go anywhere far away, I'm really gonna like
hide in the closet.
I'll like monthly trips. Like, but I'm just here for a football game. It's like, Dad, like, okay, you like went to every game. I'm getting season tickets.
You're like, I'm at the volleyball game. Yeah. Now I'm at the water polo game.
Oh man, I have a professor here. We're doing a collaboration. Like, why are you here? I'm here for a lecture. Like, I'm just gonna be there. I'm gonna find a reason to be there monthly to stop by. That was a great question. That was exciting. This was actually a really good episode, Todd.
You're just fun to hang out with. This is just everyone has a portal to what our lives are together.
Portal. I like that word. So, this is the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. So, shout out means show love to anyone you want to show love to. And then plugs, these are things that, ways that the followers or listeners, or whatever, they can follow up with you, and the things that you're working on or things you've already worked on, like your book. I'm going to put it in the show notes anyway. Shout outs and plugs.
Well, I've got some amazing collaborators that are the reason the Wellbeing Lab has done as many things that it's done. So to Fallon Goodman, to Jim Dorley, to David Desabato, Kerry Kelso. It's the students that make the research work, and they deserve much more credit than they get, I think, from society.
Excellent. And then things that you're working on and ways the listeners can engage with you or follow up.
Yeah, we're doing. I mean, I'll just mention it, but they can get it for free from my website. But our big thing we're studying right now is what's called high functioning after psychopathology, and that's the idea that you could be depressed, you could have social anxiety disorder, you can have panic attacks, you can attempt suicide, and then years later, that there's some element of that, of knowing the depths of despair, that allows you to potentially have a greater, more fulfilling life where you actually flourish at higher peaks than you ever did before. And we're trying to understand what that group is, what percentage of the population is in that group, and then what predicts that group, and then how can we cultivate qualities in people so that when they do unfortunately experience mental health difficulties, that they can actually go through it and come out stronger on the other side.
I feel like it's elasticity, right? If you maybe they're just they put themselves so much stress, they know at the end, they they be like, I've been rock bottom. Like, you always see these stories, I've been rock bottom. But the most people that have been the most rock bottom are the most motivational speakers.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's...
about that. I was in my car, I was going to die. And then they change their life. They become really good, motivators. So I don't know, maybe there's something to be said about people that can acknowledge the bottom and use that, channel that to good. Harness it. Which, first of all, let's say right here on the podcast, we are not telling anyone go to rock bottom to be a motivational speaker. I don't think that's what we're saying.
It is the path to a good TED Talk, but that's not worth the depressive episode.
No, but I think there is something to be said about that. People that experience the lowest of lows can channel that and become really good messengers of that.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've heard it. I'm really interested to see.
Yeah, what's interesting is what are the paths, right? You can imagine one person becoming religious, and you can imagine one person finding the love of their life, and you can imagine someone discovering exercise for the first time and kind of realize, as you were saying, working on mind and body is the way to a better living. But yeah, that's what we're trying to explore.
That's good. I'm very interested. Maybe you have to find, for that study, you have to find people that have admittedly been that way.
That's right.
To start. So I think that's
and we follow them over time.
So you got to find the vulnerability and see whether, that's pretty cool. See, I like that. That's why I like your lab, because I think as the experiments that you're not experiments, but they're really experiments, but at the same time, it's wow, we're looking at life and seeing how we can extrapolate real data from that could be usable to help people.
I mean, we're really into how dynamic processes unfold over time, and not just, hey, are extroverted people happier than introverted people? That's not an interesting question.
The answer is yes,
in our lab. Well, what's interesting is when what's interesting is when introverted people are given instructions to act extroverted. They show a burst in positive emotions in their daily lives. But at the same time, when you act inauthentically, you see a decline in positive emotions. So it's interesting. It's very complicated to kind of explore that.
Can we do another one? Have you ever done the one where you said you told an extrovert to chill out and be introverted?
No, but that's actually a really good... It's funny how people only do one directional arrow in that relationship.
Let's do that one.
Yeah.
Tell me to not talk to no one for a whole week. Or, like I did, I already failed this test. Tell me to, actually be okay being by myself for a week.
Just be mindful, contemplative, and just relax and
I'm gonna really
sedentary.
I want to do a think week. You heard about that? Know what that is?
Is that like no drinking during January, but it's thought processes?
No, that's sober, so whatever. No, think week is look at Bill Gates. He would purposely go to a random cabin in Wyoming because he's super rich, and he would be by himself with whiteboards and all that, only get his meals delivered because he's super rich, and he'd be creative, but in solitary creative. And they call it Think Week. So a lot of entrepreneurs that are rich can do it, but I'm broke, so I can do it out here in my she shed.
I mean, you have the house he's trying to buy in Wyoming already, so you skip the rich part. You don't need that part.
So the point is, purposely being isolated,
Right.
not told to. So that's the difference. Solitary
Yeah.
confinement, to be creative and actually embrace being alone, which I literally already told you would be my torture.
1 week is a long time.
Actually, I was trying to do one time, and I wonder, this over under, this is the longest shout outs and plugs ever. I was told, I told people I could do this, but no one believes I can. I was going to actually go to a silent retreat, a monk one, out there in Loudoun, and everyone told me that I wouldn't make it a whole weekend.
Did you do this? Did you try it?
I didn't do it. I was going to do it before the pandemic.
I mean, this is a great social experiment for you.
Yeah, but my wife, okay, I'm doing it, but like, I didn't get permission from my wife to be out of the house for like, let me rephrase, out of the house, but you know, like, I'm like legit, I'm off for the weekend. It's almost like a vacation though.
Yeah, you're going to have to double it up on when you come back.
But here's the craziest part about that silent retreat. It's actually, you're doing work and you're around people. You just can't talk the whole time and all that. So I literally would go crazy.
Like you're talking about
It's a monastery.
high school lunchroom. You sit with all your friends, but it's a silent table.
Yeah, and you have to do errands and you do stuff. You got to work, like, I think you like clean, like washing dishes. Like you're doing work, just can't talk the whole time. And it's like pin drop silent.
Yeah, you're going to lose your mind.
I think I've asked like 10 people, and I think 10 people said I couldn't make it a whole weekend. I kind of want to do like a survivor poll.
I'm attaching EEGs to you and kind of heart rate monitoring, and I'm going to see like a 180 over 120
I want to
the entire week.
I want to get a money pool. Like everyone just give me $1 or chip in, and if I make it, I get all the money.
Yeah.
That'll give me motivation to do it.
I mean, that's the motivation for almost anything.
All right. Well, this is great. So I got two things challenged. One, Todd is doing all this great work on the people that will show resilience through the adversity. And maybe down the line, he's going to do a study on me as an extrovert that has to embed introverted qualities to see if it changes my well-being. I think the hypothesis is that it would probably affect it negatively, but we'll see. So Todd, this is great. This is one of many. I think this is one of my longest podcasts I've ever recorded. It's a marathon. Your work is great. Upside to Dark Side is one. And The Art of Insubordination is another one, the books. And your website, what's the name of the website?
ToddKashdan.com.
Man, he's got his own website. And what's the Wellbeing Lab? What's it called?
Well, it's the Wellbeing Laboratory, but you can get all the articles for free at ToddKashdan.com.
Look, there it is. So it's all one-stop shop. So I'm plugging everything that you got. And do you have a LinkedIn?
We got LinkedIn, Todd Kashdan.
There it is. LinkedIn.
Twitter, Todd Kashdan.
There it is.
Instagram, Todd Kashdan.
There it is. So follow him on all that. Connect with him. Let him know you listen to this show. As I wrap up this show, as I told you earlier, every episode is dedicated in the memory of my father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch, and the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Advocacy Fund. That's very important to him, and that, for me, this is the way that he lives on, by giving him his flowers, especially someone that really helped me. If you like this episode, give it a follow or a like or subscribe or whatever you do it. Share with a family member or friends. Sharing positivity is a movement, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.